Crash Twinsanity, the last mainline Crash game that was released before the series went into its 9-year hiatus after Crash of the Titans, but as of Crash 4, everything after the original trilogy is just rendered as non-canon, which honestly makes me feel bad for this game after finding out about the developmental history behind it all and all the hoops and hurdles that the developers had to go through. After researching this game's history, I'm surprised this game was even released at all with all the backtracking and all the shit that had to be scrapped. So after Wrath of Cortex received very mixed reception from fans and critics, Traveler's Tale decided to try something different. The first idea they came up with was Crash Bandicoot Evolution, which was going to take a darker approach with the world of Crash Bandicoot. The premise of this game was that twin characters were stealing planets piece by piece and crafting it into one big planet. But then when they saw that Insomniac Games was making Ratchet & Clank, which from their perspective was exactly what they were doing, they decided to go back to the drawing board. Instead of a darker tone, they decided to go with a comedic buddy approach with this game, but they couldn't settle on a name for it though. All the names that were thrown out were Crash Bandicoot Unlimited, Fully Flex, Twinsane, but Vivendi got tired of them just going back and forth, just gave them an hour to decide, or else the default name Unlimited would be final. So they came up with the name Twinsanity with only 5 minutes to spare, although the game would be announced as Crash Bandicoot Unlimited in early 2004, so yeah. They want to make Cortex a playable character from the beginning and tag along with Crash in this adventure to dive a little bit deeper into Cortex's character. Some inspiration for Crash and Cortex's dynamic in this game was Jay and Silent Bob and Ren and Stimpy, and seeing how they act with each other in this game, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This game also introduces Cortex's niece, Nina Cortex. Okay, well, she's labeled as Cortex's niece, but he isn't entirely sure about it, but that fact does lead to my favorite line in the entire game, though.
My daughter, niece!
But that also would have some disturbing implications, but I'm pretty sure someone who's more weird than me would go into more details. Weird side note, Nina was originally supposed to make her debut appearance in this game, but she was put into Crash Purple, which predates Twinsanity by 3 months, as a boss fight, and somehow the guy who created the character didn't know about it until the game was released. How does something like that even happen? It's like if a comic book writer made a character, but the movie adaptation introduced the character before the source material does. Like, did they just do it on purpose? Anyway, this game probably had the most cut content that any Crash game has had at this point. Crunch Bandicoot from Wrath of Cortex was meant to make a cameo in one level, but it was scrapped. There was going to be a good version of Cortex, but that was scrapped too. Coco was meant to play a big role in the story, but her story significance was cut for time. In the demo of Crash Unlimited, Crash was supposed to have a punching move, but it was removed, which honestly that was probably for the best. Crash Twinsanity was released on September 28, 2004 on the PS2 and Xbox Original, but not the GameCube though. The GameCube port was planned, but it was scrapped because, again, they only had so much time. Now, despite this game's crazy history, most fans agree that Twinsanity was actually the last good Crash game before the reboot. And while there are some people who genuinely hate this game, the good majority actually like it and appreciate the game's experimentation. So what are my thoughts on this game? Well, I actually had this copy for a while because I planned to review this right after my Sonic Frontiers video, but after what happened in 2023, I had to put it on hold, but I decided to play it anyway, and I remember liking it, but I didn't really see that much reason to come back to it, and seeing that this is my second full playthrough of this game, yeah, y'all can really see why, but anyway, let's dive into Crash Twinsanity, and yeah, I am playing this game on the PS2, because I don't have an Xbox original, and hearing what I've heard, you shouldn't play the Xbox version on the Xbox 360 because the freaking slow down and frame drops. So yeah, stick to PS2 if you want to play this game. Okay, so when I say that this game had a lot of cut content, I think that the cut content affected the story in this game too. To be fair, I never really expect Crash Bandicoot of all things to have like god tier level of story, and it's been like that since the first game. But the story in this game is kind of a mess. So the game starts off with Coco chasing a butterfly, as she does apparently, and Cortex hiding behind the trees and paralyzing Coco with his gun. Don't get too excited about her being here since this is one of the 3 times that you'll see her. Then we see Crash digging a hole with someone's random shoe in his mouth, and if that's not disturbing enough for you.
Something weird going on in the bay! Come see!
So Cortex steals Coco's clothes and tricks Crash into going in the trap that he set up for him. And we see that Cortex gathers up all the boss fights we've encountered in previous games, including the pissed off Polar with a baseball bat. And some of you are probably wondering what we did to him, but personally I feel like it's get back for when Crash threw his mom off a bottomless cliff like he was Mufasa. Anyway, Cortex brings out Mecha Bandicoot to fight Crash, and then Crash defeats it, which caused Cortex's ship to go out of commission and hit Crash into a cavern. They get back up, and in a fit of rage, Cortex charges towards Crash and plays through a callback to the atmosphere from Wrath of Cortex. After that's all over, Cortex finds a crystal on Crash, who was just fascinated towards shiny objects now. He grabs the crystal, and since Cortex refuses to let it go, Crash has to drag him around. Now that they escape from the underground, Crash and Cortex meet the main villains of this game, the evil twins, who are called Victor and Maurice. To show them how serious they are, they pull Cortex's brain out of his ear, and it's just back inside after the cutscene ends. So realizing they have a common enemy, Crash and Cortex decide on a temporary truce until they beat the evil twins. But Cortex gets attacked by bees and gets kidnapped by Papu Papu and the rest of his tribe. What does that have to do with the rest of the story? I cannot tell you for the life of me. But Crash saves them and they meet the evil twins again, and they send a Tiki monster to deal with them. After defeating the Tiki monster, Cortex comes up with an idea when he finds out they're from the 10th dimension, so he teleports to his ice lair and leaves Crash to ride on the boat to get there. If Cortex can just do that whenever he wants to, why is the entire game based around dragging Cortex around? They arrive at the Iceberg lair, but the door is frozen, so they have to find another way to get in. While they do that, they accidentally wake up Uka Uka and Aku Aku, and I have to fight Aku Aku as an ice monster, and for some reason, the ice monster just falls down instead of melting. Aku Aku and Uka Uka decide to join Crash and Cortex in taking out the evil twins. So after that, Cortex introduces his Psychotron, which allows him to travel to the 10th dimension, but they need crystals to give it power. To get those crystals, they go to Enge's battleship, who looks like he got a chronic disease, and fight Embryo and Entropy in a ridiculously easy boss fight. Once we get the crystals from this role, Cortex is ready to set up the Psychotron, but Coco comes out of nowhere and messes everything up and gets herself paralyzed again in the process. So now we have to go to Madame Amberly's Academy of Evil to find Nina Cortex to fix the machine. We go over to the Academy of Evil and Cortex falls into a hole and gets stuck inside of a barrel where you have to roll him around until we confront Dingo Doll in a pretty decent boss fight. Cortex finds Nina and has a fight with the head of the Academy, Madame Amberly, and Cortex defeats her, and Cortex remembers why the evil twins hate him so much. When he was a kid, he sent him to the 10th dimension, leaving them trapped there, and that is it. So now Crash, Cortex, and Nina go to the 10th dimension to face off against the evil twins one last time, but then evil Crash just pops out right out of nowhere and kidnaps Nina, and they also introduce him in a weird ass way too.
Your fur is so soft and warm.
So after that, Crash and Cortex go after him, he chases Cortex a little bit, and that's the last we see of him. He's forgotten as quickly as he's introduced. Anyway, once that's over with, Crash, Cortex, and Nina break into the evil twins' lair and prepare for a final confrontation with Cortex, Nina, and Mecha Bandicoot. The trio defeat the evil twins and they try to flee, but they get eaten by evil Crash. The trio returns to their original world and Cortex finally decides that he doesn't want to see Crash again. And he tries to take out Crash with a Psychotron, but it malfunctions and teleports Cortex into Crash's mind, where he's surrounded by a bunch of Crash duplicates doing the Crash dance, ending the game. So that's pretty much it for the story. And like I said before, a lot of stuff just happens and everything just kind of feels like haphazardly just slaps together. And I know that's kind of because of like all the limited time they had during development, but it does make the story feel like it's all over the place. If it felt like I was just jumping around between topics while summarizing the story, that's really because that's how this game's story is like. It can really be summed up as Crash and Cortex just running around and doing things, and because of that, some plot beats just pop out of nowhere and are either never brought back up or barely had things done with them. I already talked about how random evil Crash was, but then there's Coco. She shows up only 3 times throughout the game, and she gets paralyzed the first 2 times, and then she's just randomly in the final cutscene out of nowhere, like no fanfare or anything, like she's just there. Where did she come from? That whole roster of Crash's villains from the beginning of the game, yeah, you only get to fight 3 of them. This probably isn't a big deal, but I noticed in this playthrough that Nina just has no dialogue in this game whatsoever. Not one. Like, it's not a deal breaker, but I would like to see what the dynamic would have been between her and Cortex. The evil twins, while just being kind of blamed as villains, bring up a raid that sucks all the good from Crash's world and into another world, and it's never really brought up again. I realize that a lot of this is probably because they had a lot more planned development, but it got all scrapped. But when you try to summarize it or explain it to a friend, the end product comes out as very sloppy. But hey, for what it's worth, like the one thing I can't criticize Twinsanity for is for his writing and humor.
The check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
This game is actually really funny, whether it's making fun of elements of older games.
Hey! Yeah, you! I've been doing this for 10 stinking years! Back and forward, and I'm sick of it! Well, I'm not gonna do it no more!
Or making fun of old platformer tropes.
For my orchard is riddled with greedy worms. If you rid my land of these pests, I'll give you this power crystal.
I'm an evil scientist. What do you expect?
There's a lot of funny moments here.
That treasure is stolen property.
It's a little late to develop a conscience, Doctor.
Personally, I don't care, but I think he might want his gems back.
Like, the tutorial alone is enough to get some laughs out of the player. It teaches you how the game works, but also has fun while doing it too.
I'm okay. The spikes broke my fall.
A special shout out to Cortex, easily the funniest part about this game. For this game, they really amped up his bumbling scientist persona to 11, and some people will probably label it as slanderization, but it works here since the game is supposed to be funny. His new voice actor in this game, Lex Lane, does a really great job in this game, and he gets to reprise his role in future games. I still like Clancy Brown's Cortex, but I feel like his more intimidating voice probably wouldn't work for this game's comedic angle. I also found out that Clancy Brown was replaced as Cortex because apparently he sounded too mean, and to which I say, since he's the main villain of the series, like, yeah, that's kind of the fucking point, but that's an argument for another time. The cutscene animations look really good too, not just the pre-rendered sections, which still look pretty good, but the in-game cutscenes look really good too. Characters have a good balance of splash and stretch and cartoonish energy, the same blend that Naughty Dog had, and the mouth animations are really good too. Cortex especially, this is my personal favorite model of Cortex, ignoring his big ass lips. He's expressive, and he moves how you expect him to. Now, despite what I think about this game's story, I think the writers still did a good job in just making this game funny, but all that out of the way, let's talk about the rest of the game, and I got some stuff to say here. So Twinsanity is pretty unique compared to the games that came before it, and even after it. Instead of being very linear and hallway-like, this game is more open world. There's still a specific order on how you progress through the story, but in terms of gameplay, you can explore freely around every hub world and level. If you want to play through the game just normally, then you can do that, but you'll probably miss out on like 55% of the game if you do. Not that Twinsanity isn't good if you play casually, but the game is pretty short if you just play it like that. There's only 4 hub worlds in this game and 3 levels each. You can blast through the game in about 2 to 4 hours playing normally. Going for 100% increases it to 6 to 7. I didn't go for a full completion for this playthrough, but I got it close though, around like 85%, but more on that later. This game is built on Crash and Cortex dragging each other around, but those are really segments of the actual game, since 3/4 of the game is mostly regular Crash platforming. Matter of fact, Cortex isn't even playable as himself until the second to last level in the game, so off the bat, Twinsanity does a better job of being focused on its core gameplay than Wrath of Cortex. Crash's gameplay style is pretty similar to the PS1 games and Wrath of Cortex. He can spin and jump on enemies, body slam, but I noticed that he takes longer to get back up after performing it. It never really caused any problems, but it is causing me to take unnecessary damage in boss fights. He also has a double jump by default, and I think it's better than the one in Crash 3, since it doesn't have the weird timing in between jumps. Then we have the slide and slide jump, and they're not as good as they used to be. The slide itself is fine, but the slide jump is a big downgrade from Crash 2 and 3. You still get the distance from a regular slide jump, but you don't get nowhere near as much as the height though. To be fair, most if not all jumps in this game can be completed with a single or double jump. Off the top of my head, I can really only think of one part of the game that required me to make a slide jump. But as someone who played Crash 2 and 3 way too many times, it just sucks that you can't pull off the same cool shit that you can do in those games with the slide jump. Crash's overall control in this game feels a little bit stiff and sometimes unresponsive, especially while platforming, but it's never to the point where Crash doesn't feel fun to control. Matter of fact, Twinsanity has some of the most creative level design in the whole series, like the Academy of Evil level where it mixes the ball rolling with Cortex and the puzzle solving. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out what the proper sequence was to navigate Cortex through these tunnels. The first sequence and the second one, I love that one too, but then on the final level, Travel still really went all out with this. It's tough, but I really like figuring out the patterns of these light switching platforms. This game actually did that gimmick 9 years before Super Mario 3D World did. But not all the levels in this game are good though. I don't really like the level in Engine's Battleship. The rotating platforms are really inconsistent with which part of the platform I'm able to walk on and which part I'm not. This is where I felt the fault of Crash controlling the most here, because sometimes I would just press the button to jump and the game just wouldn't register it. The overabundance of nitros and TNT crates right before the stage doesn't really help either. I lost so many lives because of that. Usually in Crash games, it doesn't really take too long for me to max all my lives, but this game is a little bit more stingy when it comes to extra lives, and even when I do see a chance to get extra lives, I lose a life trying to get that life. I managed to see this screen a couple of times, and I haven't seen the game over screen to a Crash game in a while, too. The Nitro and TNT crates being the biggest factor here, since these things are one-hit kills, and to any Crash fan you would say, yeah, no shit, it's been like that since Crash Bandicoot 2, and no, even being in an invincible Aku Aku state doesn't even save you from that. For some reason, Aku Aku can't protect you from stage hazards.
It is I, Aku Aku. My duty is to protect you. You may summon me by breaking open these crates. Call me thrice, and I shall grant you special powers.
So that was a fucking lie.
You can still use them for protection from enemies, but Invincible Aku Aku doesn't even kill them, you just rub against them. This is an example of the game's coding not getting the proper fixes, but I'll talk about that later. This game introduces new styles that break up the core platforming, but unlike Wrath of Cortex, they don't take up most of the game. First are the crashing Cortex sections. You'll either be playing as them with dragging Cortex around holding the crystal, the tumbleweed sections, but that's only in the first level, and using Cortex as a makeshift surfboard. I really like the crystal sections because the levels that are designed around it really make you think about how to approach it. You can throw Cortex to get collectibles and activate levers to progress through this level, and the best part is the stage isn't slowed down by AI incompetence. If you miss a throw, Cortex teleports right back to you. Then we got the tumbleweed sections where crashing Cortex are rolling all over the stage. I like these, but sometimes it can be a little bit hard to control your speed when you pick up a lot of it. And finally there's the snowboard levels where Crash uses Cortex as his own snowboard and just scrapes his face and just destroys his testicles. I like these, and they can be pretty tough with all the hazards and challenges for getting all the gems. There's also these escort missions that you can do with Cortex, and I already know just hearing the word escort missions are triggering for some of you, but it's actually good here because it's designed like a platforming stage. I still can't get over how Cortex just teleports himself to the next area, as if he couldn't do that before. You can get to play as Cortex himself in a couple of instances. It's basically just running and gunning, kind of like Ratchet & Clank if I can compare it to anything. Cortex can take out enemies by shooting them with his gun, or just crashing into them with his large fucking head. These sections are fine, I like them more than Cortex's gameplay in Crash 4. Then there's Neo Cortex. She's pretty much like Crash without the double jump, or slide, or body slam. If anything, she kinda reminds me of Tano from Crash 4. The thing that makes her unique is her grappling hook. There's these reticles that you can lock on to let you out your grappling hook for some pretty fun platforming. I actually like this, but she's only playable in one level in the final boss, but when she's playable, it's always really fun. Also, it's cool detail that Cortex and Nina have Uka Uka as their mask, but they still have the same sounds as Aku Aku anyway. How collectibles are handled in this game are different than before. Crystals are now acquired from cutscenes now instead of being your angle objective. Instead of 25 crystals like the other games, there's only 12 now. Now the gems are placed around the levels for platforming challenges, and while these can be fun, I kinda stopped collecting them by the time I got to the final world because, again, going for these will cause me to lose lives when I'm itching for them, and because going for them only unlocks concept art and cut content that was removed from last minute, and also a trailer for Spiral A Hero's Tale, which is a game that Traveler's Tale was also developing at this point in time, and going for 100% also gives you a secret ending where Crash and Cortex go to therapy. This all sounds cool, but when you can just look it all up online, it kinda loses the impact. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see all the cut content that Twinsanity had knowing about its development history, but at the same time, why should I collect all the gems for concept art when I could just look it up on Google? But this does give me a chance to talk about some aspects about this game that didn't get the proper fixes, because when people say that this game was rushed, they're not just talking about the gameplay content or the story. The game's coding wasn't given enough attention that it needed. Like I said before, this game looks beautiful for 2004, and the soundtrack is really good too. The acapella soundtrack makes Crash Twinsanity pretty unique from the other Crash games, but that's all the compliments that I can give to this game's presentation. This game is pretty glitchy. Like, it's nowhere near on the same level as Enter the Dragonfly, like I'm not swimming in midair, but there are some known glitches though. Like a Crash just starts moonwalking for no reason. This happens twice too. The first time you see her right before you meet the evil twins, and again at the stealth section at the Academy of Evil level. In the first snowboarding section, I somehow managed to get stuck in between this crevice right here, and I had to restart the game because I couldn't get back onto the platform or die. So it basically soft locked me. In the cutscene where Coco gets paralyzed for the second time, she has an active hitbox, which means that Coco can kill you. The T-boss has the same thing too. When you defeat it, its hitbox is still active. I guess the T-monster is so powerful that he can kill you even when it's dead. Some sound effects don't play in cutscenes.
Looks like we'll have to wring it out of him. Embryo, get changed.
And I already talked about the TNT crates and Nacho crates killing you in one hit, but the Iron crates for some reason don't give you a drop shadow when you're over it. And when you're platforming above a bottomless pit, this just makes my hands sweat so much. Sometimes there's death animations when you die, but most of the time, Crash just trips out of nowhere or the game just fades to black. And the cutscenes are unskippable, which doesn't sound too bad, until you keep dying at a random part of the game, and you keep seeing the same cutscene over and over and over and over and over again. All this doesn't really affect the game from a gameplay standpoint, but most of the time, it's kinda hard not to point it out. Like, this wouldn't be a review of Twinsanity if I didn't bring all this stuff up. I think the last thing to talk about here are the boss fights, and they're kinda hit or miss. And to be fair, there are more hits than misses though, I'm being honest, but yeah. The game starts off with a pretty good first boss with Mecha Bandicoot and the Tiki boss fight, but the distance on throwing Cortex into the Tiki monster's mouth is kind of weird. Then we get to Engine and he sucks. All he does is just throw an TNT and rockets at you very slowly. He's easily the worst boss in the game, followed by Embryo and Entropy. All Embryo does is just bounce towards you very slowly, and all Entropy does is just break up the platform and just does nothing to attack you. A complete downgrade from the original bosses. But in contrast, there's Dingo Dog, who's actually just as good as his original boss, maybe even better. The way his patterns work and how aggressive he can be actually caught me off guard a couple of times. Then there's Madame Amberly. She's a pretty decent boss, but just a little bit short. And finally there's the Evil Twins, and while the boss is a pretty good spectacle and one of the better final bosses in the series, it's still a little bit too easy since all you do with Neo is just use the grappling hook to destroy the platforms. All you do with Cortex is just run around in one direction and shoot the robot's handgun. And while it's cool that we get to play as Mecha Bandicoot, but all you do with them is just walk around and we just wait for opening to shoot the Evil Twins, the robot. But at least the music here is pretty good though. So overall, I really like Twinsanity as a whole. Sure, the game is pretty glitchy and some aspects of it pissed me off, but the core gameplay is something that I usually look for in a Crash game, and the way the game experiments with different style really makes the game unique. Oh man, you criticize Wrath of Cortex for having too many gameplay style. Why does Twinsanity get the same treatment? Because it's not switching up its gameplay every 5 minutes. Even with the open world aspect, the game still focuses on Crash's core platforming. I mean, I will still play the original trilogy and CCR over this game if I get the chance, but Twinsanity is still a well-crafted game, for the most part. And it's way better than Wrath of Cortex. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't really take a lot to be better than Wrath of Cortex, but Traveler's Tale still deserves some credit for trying to make up for all of Wrath of Cortex's shortcomings. If you're a hardcore Crash fan, I don't think it will hurt that much to add this game to your collection, but I don't know if I would recommend this as someone's first Crash game since it's pretty different from the other games, so I would say play the older games first, PS1 or PS4, doesn't really matter, and then come to this game. And since this game usually goes for cheap online, it's not a huge loss if you don't end up liking it. So next time I come back to the series, we'll probably do the Titans games, and there's actually a lot of cancel games too, so we're not really done with the series just yet. But in the meantime, it's time for another marathon. So a while back, I put up a poll asking you guys what series of games you wanted me to do a marathon next, and surprisingly, you guys wanted me to do Devil May Cry in. You know, I'm not mad at that. I just kind of thought you guys would pick Kingdom Hearts, but I'm more sad about the fact that like this is the third time I put Uncharted on the poll for like a marathon, and each time it's gotten dead last. So like, wait, what are you gonna do? But all out the way, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.